All right, shall we go ahead and get started, I guess? Looks good to me. It looks like everybody has trickled in from the waiting room, and I'm sure some more folks will be trickling in as well as we get into the meat of everything today. But I want to welcome everybody. Thank you all for coming out and for tuning in. My name is John Cavalier from Cavalier House Books in Denham Springs, Louisiana. And today we're going to be doing a little bit of a roundtable on hybrid events, which is kind of a new beast to all of us. It's kind of something that, you know, as the pandemic continues to thaw and we are getting back to quote unquote normalcy, I suppose. It's all about, you know, trying to figure out what that new normal is so that we can take all the neat gadgets that we bought, all the ring lights and microphones and software that we subscribe to and all that stuff, and put it to good use with some of the old tricks that we know so well from doing in-person events. So we've got a couple of folks on with us today. We've got Rebecca Dole from Quail Ridge Books with us, and Jamil Chrisman from Eagle Eye. And so I want to let them introduce themselves real quick, and then we'll kind of get into the meat of things. Rebecca, why don't you start off with a little brief intro, just who you are, where you're from, past experience, and future hopes.
Sure. Yeah. So thanks, John. Like he said, my name is Rebecca, and I'm from Quail Ridge Books in Raleigh, North Carolina. I've been there not quite 2 years, actually. My background is more in doing events and marketing for accounting associations, but found myself at Quail Ridge and love it there. And when the pandemic happened, they needed somebody to get virtual events going. And so I was in the right place at the right time and have been running all of our virtual events. And now that we're getting back into in-store events, have been working with our authors on those as well. So future hopes would be, I think that probably what we're all here for, finding a way to make these hybrid events work in the best way possible, because I don't think from a publisher standpoint, these requests are going to be going away. I know as bookstores, we want to be able to continue to engage the virtual audience around the world that we've kind of harnessed during the pandemic. So I think that it's in all of our best interests if we can find ways to make the hybrid thing work out.
Absolutely. And Jamil, brief intro, past experience, future hopes.
Hello, I'm Jamil Chrisman, and I work at Eagle Eye Books. I'm the marketing director there, and I have a very big background in tech work, a lot of visual specifically. And so I feel like I have the ability to do this, and I think it will really help our bookstore gain an audience that we never have been able to before. I mean, I feel like we've all been trying to do something like this for a very, very long time. And we finally have the opportunity, even though we're kind of like forced into doing it. I think this is a very good opportunity that we can turn this around and make lemonade out of this situation. And talking to other bookstores about how they do hybrid events, I think will only help us all in the long run.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I know the really tough thing is just how many different, event types there are, from, doing small events to large scale events. And hopefully we'll touch a little bit on everything today. And if anybody that's tuning in, if you guys have any questions, we want to keep this kind of informal. We're set up meeting style. So if you guys have any questions or you want to engage in any back and forth, just raise your hand so we can get organized, and you can unmute and come on screen and we can have a chat. Or if you guys want to feature any questions in the chat function too, we'll be keeping an eye on that so we can kind of keep everything moving. We just did our first in-person event just a couple of weeks ago, and my goal was to try to, add a little bit of a little bit of the digital stuff to it as well. We had a musician specifically as Chris Thomas King, who's a blues musician who's got a great new book about the blues out. And my intent was to just try to broadcast some of the musical performance. And so, I had thought everything out and got organized and did everything that I had in my mind to do. And then at the last minute, everything fell apart. So there are certainly a lot of challenges, both logistically and technical, that we can get into. One of the things that I was hoping to do with Rebecca is Rebecca has a huge event coming up in a couple of months with Wiley Cash. And so I was kind of thinking we would use that as a little bit of a jumping off point. If you could describe that event to us, because it has a lot of moving parts, both in person and virtual. And I know that we can kind of get into the meat of a lot of things with that.
Yeah, sure. So as I'm sure probably pretty much everybody here knows, Wiley's got a new book coming out in September, and he approached us. He knew that he wanted to do an event in partnership with SIBA and Libro FM, that he will be in conversation with his audiobook narrator. And so he came to us and said, hey, I'd love to do the event in store at Quail Ridge Books, but it needs to have these virtual components. So he wants to be in store in front of a live audience with his audiobook narrator, who is not in North Carolina. So he will be in conversation with him via Zoom. And then, of course, with the partnership with SIBA and Libro, we will also have a virtual audience. So we've got kind of a split between both our audiences and our presenters that are a part of the event. So that is quite a bit to be tackling for our first true hybrid event. But yeah, am excited to have the opportunity to hear what we've done some testing, to make sure that the audio and everything will work, but would love to hear your thoughts on just how to make it the best possible event. Obviously some concerns. I don't know if we want to start with leading up to it or
well, a couple of things come to my mind kind of with that is that one, it's a huge technical challenge because what's Wiley going to be interacting with during the presentation and everything. Is it going to be a screen? Is it going to be a projector? How's he going to be fielding questions from the virtual audience? How will the virtual audience see any questions coming from the real life audience? And so what are some of the technical things that you guys have in place that you've kind of thought about?
Yeah, so our plan right now, because there is the component where he's interacting with his in-conversation partner via Zoom. So our plan is to have him speaking. He'll have a laptop in front of him so that he'll be able to see his in-conversation partner on there. And then we're also going to run the laptop screen through our projector so that the audience that's in the store will be able to see both Wiley and his in-conversation partner. And then the same, of course, goes for the virtual audience, that they will need to be able to see Wiley. So because of the fact that in this case, he needs a computer screen in front of him to be able to see, I think that actually makes it a little bit easier that we have a good reason to put a laptop in front of him so that he'll be able to see and interact that way. With the questions from the virtual audience, I think it lends itself really well if the audiobook narrator is comfortable with moderating those questions because he will already be piped in. I think if it was a situation where it wasn't like that, then I would have to step in and read those questions. But I think some of this will actually be made a little bit easier by having all of the different components stacked. But yeah.
Yeah, kind of a divide and conquer approach, I suppose, with just make sure everyone has a role and knows their role. What about the live audience, the live audience will be able to see the question feed coming in from the virtual audience, and the virtual audience will be able to see anybody asking questions in real life or interacting, or how's that going to work? Because that's that's a literal moving parts with bodies moving around.
Yeah, and I guess, to be completely honest, I haven't thought through, will the virtual audience need to and be able to see the in-person audience? Because that's something that I think we've all gotten used to with these Zooms, is you literally only see the people that you are there to see. You don't see any of the audience, and so I don't know that the virtual audience needs to see that there's an in-store audience watching. Definitely the questions, they should hear the questions that they're being asked, but I think that can be fixed with the nice repeat the question back if the microphone isn't picking up the audio of the audience.
Right. Yeah, and
Travis-
that's
sorry.
we don't all have to, like, I've got it. I'm kind of thinking of things in terms of, like, the way you see things on television a lot of the time, where it's like multi-camera and you're doing all this stuff. And so, yeah, it's a lot of preconceived notions that I personally have in my head that, I know that is personally my worst enemy when it comes to doing things like that, is trying to replicate something else instead of focusing on what I have in front of me. But yeah,
So this is the one thing that I think I have, like, all of the other pieces I'm not very good with. Like, I am not good at running, like, the administration of Zoom yet. Like, I'm getting my bearings, but as far as, like, the visual stuff, the way that I have set it up is I am on the very side of the audience, where the and it all does come down to, like, equipment. I have a very high-end webcam that's got a very long cord on it, and a tripod that, while I'm sitting there working on the Zoom, I can swivel from and I'm close to the to the person speaking, and then the audience is right there, so I can just swivel it around. It's got a PZM mic, so that way it picks up far distance. However, if I feel like in the first couple that I do, we have a sound system, and what we may have, when somebody's got a question in the audience, maybe we can take the wireless mic, the handheld wireless mic, to them, so then it can be absolutely heard. But I feel like, out of everything, those are the things that I have a hold on more than some of the things that you guys have a hold on.
I should add, I have the Zoom technical knowledge. Quail Ridge is fortunate enough to have probably a larger staff than some independent bookstores. And so we do have a person on staff who, like, AV is his specialty. And so I'm very fortunate to be relying on him with the actual hookup. So I know there's a lot of questions that maybe you'll be able to help with, that I'm seeing coming into the chat about, like, well, you won't know how many mics we're employing. We do have 2 wireless mics, and I know our plan is to have Wiley mic'd, so that the in-store audience will be able to hear him. And then we would have a second mic available to have the audience ask their questions into as well. And the in-store audience will see Wiley live, because Wiley will actually be in store at our bookstore.
And Jamil, with kind of that technical background with some of the equipment and stuff, we have some questions coming up in the chat about potential feedback issues, or making sure you have enough mics to cover everything.
So we would just have the one mic for people to talk through. Nobody is going to be able to hear what I'm doing on my computer, because I'll have my headphones on. So the PZM mic won't be, it's more like when you have monitors and other speakers that usually causes the feedback problems. But you shouldn't have that problem if you're wearing headphones, kind of like what Rebecca's doing right there.
Yeah. And Rebecca, another question that came up in the chat, how many folks are going to be in the audience for the event? Is it going to be capped?
So our in-store, I believe we have the potential to seat like 200 to 250 people in our bookstore itself if we move all of our shelves out of the way. So that would be the cap.
When you guys do big events like that, do y'all typically do like live sound reinforcement with PA and speakers and everything?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that I'm curious about, seeing those practical applications of not necessarily the feedback issues that would come back from that, but it's more of an MC issue where you're playing to two audiences, like right now, we're all sitting in front of a computer looking at a screen. I just move my eyeballs one way or the other to see who I'm talking to and who's listening. But when you're doing that virtually versus in person, you act differently. And I know Wiley's definitely a charismatic fellow, and he can think on his feet. So I mean, he's a great test case. He'll be a great example to show what can be done and what can be achieved, I'm sure. But have you guys thought about I'm curious about like coaching, like how do you, all the authors that are going to participate in all these different events have different talents, right? And so some people are shy, some people are very big, so like how do you adjust for that, and how do you coach for some sort of baseline?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that especially with this event, and not to to give Wiley some more props, he is obviously very well versed. I know he's done so many reader meets writer events. He teaches, so there's obvious comfort and charisma with both being in front of a camera on a virtual event and in store. As a staff, we've talked about a little bit, how do we help coach these people and make sure things work. And I think at least with making sure that the virtual audience and the in-store audience feel like they're being talked to at the same time. If you're in an audience at an event, obviously the speaker is seldom, if always, looking at you. If you have done a presentation, to kind of move your eyes around a room and look at different people. So we have talked about coaching them to kind of do that, but then also make one of their eye contacts the camera that the virtual audience is in, so that they will feel like they're now. I have not attended a virtual event like that to see what happens, and do you feel like the person is just not looking at you enough? Because I think we have gotten very accustomed to looking into a webcam, and so you feel like the person is kind of always talking to you because you're looking at them on your screen. So, but that I think is the most logical thing that we've come up with, to kind of just add that computer or that webcam as one of the people in your audience that you're occasionally looking at and engaging with.
Right. Jamil, there was a specific question that I kind of thought about with you, just because I know Eagle Eye has an amazing like cooking food prep demonstration area. Have you guys given any thought to how best to utilize that? Are you planning on doing like your own Food Network show in the future?
Yeah, okay. So I guess part of the reason that I understand some of these issues is because doing a live event with that, the way that I've set it up is we have a big, huge TV in our, right where we do events. And then we've got the demo station. And when there's a big event where there's a lot larger audience, they can't see in the mirrors what's happening. So what I have done is I have put a webcam on there that feeds up into the TV so people can see their hands and what they're doing. And so one thing that so yeah, we are planning to do that. We're gonna get a couple of hybrid regular things in, because when you start throwing those extra things in there, it gets very complicated, as Rebecca knows. When you've got like an extra person or even just an extra thing that you've got to stack on top of it, it gets complicated as far as the logistics go. So where was I going with that? I forgot what was I talking about?
Oh, just generally about y'all's cooking demo station and potential uses and plans and previous experience with it that kind of pairs nicely to what we're talking about.
What I was going to say is, one of the things about doing a virtual event where they're not looking at the screen, as the camera operator, it's like I found myself, I have to make it more entertaining for people to watch. And so it sometimes is really a good idea if you can move the camera and zoom around to show the audience, just like you're even though it's a single camera, sometimes it's better. So if I have something up on the screen, I can zoom up to that. I do have a webcam that does zoom. So, and as far as the PZM mic, it's actually built into that webcam. I don't have the webcam with me. I can't quite remember what it is, but I can look it up and give you guys the type of webcam that I have. So if you're interested in getting something like that for your hybrid events, I would definitely suggest something like that.
Yeah, and that kind of actually reminds me, I'll kind of tell you guys a little bit about why my first attempt failed so miserably with the event we did a couple of weeks ago. The in-person event went fine. I was just planning on, the sort of hybrid digital portion being kind of lagniappe extra stuff that we did along with it. But throughout the pandemic, I already have a bunch of like analog microphones that'll plug into your computer, like little lanyard mics and stuff. So I've always used those. And going into the new event, I was thinking, man, I really want to buy a new USB microphone because I've just been putting it off. So I'm going to do that for the event. And so I bought, a relatively inexpensive USB mic, one of the little blue microphones that, a million people have. And you can plug it right into your cell phone. And I'm thinking like, man, I'm just going to set this up on a tripod. I'll be able to put it over in the corner, and we have a StreamYard subscription through the store. And, my thinking was I was just going to use my cell phone and the microphone as the, as just this nice little portable event station. I could just set it over here, and then we can control it through StreamYard through the desktop computer in the other room, so I'd be able to start up whenever he was playing a song, then I'd be able to stop and I'd be able to do these different cool little videos. There's a very specific technical issue in that StreamYard and most of these online event hosting providers, they add compression to the audio that comes through. And it's the same with USB microphone. And I wasn't thinking about that in advance. And so, I set everything up how I knew to, like in like analog terms, like I would if I was doing like a, like a live sound situation sort of thing. And so day of, when I'm testing my microphone out and I'm just getting this squashed audio that just sounds awful. I was using a speaker just playing a song because I was just trying to, get levels and all this stuff. And so I'm testing it out and I cannot for the life of me figure it out. And so, the event, we wound up just, converting back to, good old fashioned in-person event, and it went fine. But yeah, those technical issues, and there's nothing like a dry run to get them figured out and to get them settled beforehand, because yeah, I was taking a lot for granted there with my equipment issues. But here's another question that came through in chat, specifically about sales here. So how will book sales work at the event? Will virtual attendees be able to have the one-on-one moment while getting their book signed, personalized like the person in attendance? If so, will virtual people be able to purchase the books at/during the event? That's interesting. That's something that I'd never thought of before. You might be able to have a little bit of FaceTime with the audience.
Yeah, so that is actually, and this is, I'm hoping some of y'all will want to unmute and maybe turn your cameras on, because this is something that has actually been on my mind for this past year of doing Zoom events. I think we did like a trivia. It was actually probably almost exactly a year ago, a trivia when David Mitchell's Utopia Avenue came out, and he did like a little quick meet and greet with some of the booksellers that were a part of it as a test run, because I know that they were giving like one-on-one personal time. And I always thought like, oh, that would be such a great thing to be able to implement, because to me, that is the big part that you miss in these virtual events, is you don't get that one-on-one time with the authors. So that being said, book sales, we put all of our events on Eventbrite currently, because it just has made it so much easier to keep track of and communicate with people that sign up. So I've actually got a in-person Eventbrite event set up for this one, where folks can opt to purchase the book that way. And we also collect personalizations while they're doing that to make it a little bit smoother on site. And then same thing goes for the virtual event component, that you can purchase a ticket that includes a book for the virtual event. I have not thought about doing a one-on-one moment with virtual attendees, but would love to hear if there is anybody that's in the audience today, or if either of y'all's stores have done anything like that, how that's worked, and if you feel like that's made your virtual audience feel a little bit more engaged with the events and the authors.
Can I addendum that question too?
Yeah, of course.
While we're all right. So with the virtual events, just in general, you also have that thing where people, they can be ticketed with the purchase of the book, but people have to like think ahead of time to get. I feel like what you miss is at an in-person event, even if someone wasn't sure if they were going to buy the book, they're going to get inspired to buy the books. So the question is like, how can you create that like of the moment purchasing experience during the event? So people aren't having to think 3 weeks beforehand, like, oh, I want this book. Here's who I want it signed to.
Yep.
And then is the book shipping to them before the event or right afterwards? So it's the whole like fulfillment, delivery, and purchasing during it. Like I get purchasing beforehand, but can you? I don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, my like immediate response to that would be absolutely. We could, drop links in the chat for them to purchase from our website, and just make sure that we've got, a couple other booksellers watching for that specific book to come in, so that if we needed to do anything like real time after the event, we could pull that up and say, okay, John Smith wants his book personalized, and make sure that we get those. So I think that there's definitely ways to do it, not necessarily super automated, but I think that would be a relatively easy, because I don't know what y'all, I know every bookstore has a slightly different, we use IndieBound. And so we've got like they can put a note in their comments, so they could say like, I'm watching the event right now. We would know like, okay, we need to make sure that we fulfill this one. But yeah, we haven't.
Yeah, maybe that would be good to just do more encouraging of the virtual people during the event to, just even if it's the author reminding them once, hey, those of you who are attending from home, you can still, if you want to order another book, or if you just realize there's someone you'd love to get a signed book for, you can go to this link, or, you feel free to purchase during the event and you'll get the book within X days. Because I do feel like we lose out on sales with that element.
It might, I know Crowdcast, I know they have the little buy button that, you could put at the bottom, so that you're constantly reminding people, click on the buy link. To that engagement end of it, one thing that might be cool is do a thing that's like, okay, for anybody that buys the book now, the author will be doing a Zoom event after this with us. So like if you buy the book now, you'll get the Zoom link to, log on where it's, 20, 30 people, 10 people, whatever. And then that way you can kind of have some back and forth, just kind of shoot the breeze for a little bit. And I
That's
think
a cool
everybody
idea.
would be really excited about it.
Like make it almost like a VIP entrance. So after the event, that's when, someone can say, oh, I went to 5th grade with you, Wiley. Do you remember me? Like that kind of thing. So if you purchase it, you get the VIP ticket to the after party or whatever. That's a good idea.
Yeah, that might be something cool. Because that's the thing that I struggle with in my head is trying to, one of the big things for us is we're planning school visits for the fall coming up, and we're going to have several authors that we're bringing, physically into schools like we've always done. But we have had a lot of success on the virtual side of things, doing virtual events where, instead of, going to a school where maybe you're talking to a few classes, maybe you're talking to an entire grade level, but with the virtual event, you're talking to 10 schools, and so I'm curious if anyone has any feedback or strategies as well for that, because what I'm kind of thinking about doing is doing those in-person events and trying to figure out maybe some kind of lottery system where we pick the handful of schools that we go to, or a competition, or and maybe even like an application process to try to pinpoint the schools we go to, and then have a virtual visit for everybody that wants to attend afterwards. And I haven't fully thought everything out because it's still a work in progress. But yeah, so if anybody has any input on that, I would love to hear it as well.
So this is not a school visit, but sort of the same concept for Grady Hendrix's new book that's coming out. He said it's about like a support group. So he was like, I want to do a horror club support group with some of my fans before the event. So we're like, anyone that pre-orders the book can include like a sentence and say like, this is why I really need to be in Grady's support group. And then before the event for like 45 minutes, he's going to do essentially a meeting with everyone that wants to be in the support group. And then that will roll into just him, an event about the new book with anyone that purchased and wants to attend. But we did add that component of like, hey, tell us why you want to be a part of this group. So it's not just like anyone that pre-orders the book, because who knows how many people that could potentially be. We're capping it, I think, at like 8 to 10, but we did add that. So that is kind of a similar setup of like trying to get people excited in advance of the event, but then still offering something to everyone, whether they get picked for it or not.
Mm-hmm. What about other event types? Have you guys given any of those a thought where like specifically one that I think about is book clubs, typically with our in-person book club pre-pandemic, you get into a rut sometimes where, you have the same folks showing up and you're trying to attract new people, of course, but with the pandemic, we've found, that everyone seems to think that the virtual environment is more convenient, but, also sometimes we just want to get together. So I don't know how we're going to balance that. Have you guys given any thought to things like book clubs?
We're going to do a mix of both, back to in-person ones, some of which have very specific areas of interest, history book club, mystery book club, but we'll continue to do Atlanta Reads virtually so that we can continue to service that. We wouldn't try to do it as a, to try to make it both. We'll just do an assortment.
Yeah, I feel like with book clubs, it's going to be kind of a one or the other sort of thing. I'm just kind of torn with, specifically me personally, I've found it really convenient to participate in our book club, not at the store, at home, which is nice.
And interestingly, I discovered that most of the people in the virtual book club tend to be older and more affluent, and they are buying the book. Now, I don't know where they're buying it from, but they are buying the book in advance. They're not coming to the library to get the book, and in fact, at one point we were only covering books that we had unlimited downloadable capacity. We had purchased unlimited downloadable capacity, but those weren't very popular because people didn't want to read those books. So we just have given it up and going to popular books or newer books and hoping they buy them from our bookstore friends, and they are. Yeah.
Hi, sorry. We are doing some book club, hybrid book clubs here at Tombolo. I'm at Tombolo Books in St. Petersburg, Florida. So I'm the events coordinator. I'm Kelsey. It's nice to meet everyone. We're doing hybrid events because we launched a couple of book clubs in the pandemic, and people from like outside of Florida, like in different countries, were joining some of our book clubs. One of our more popular book clubs is our horror book club. And there are people from all over the world that come and join that book club. And so we recently purchased a projector and a screen. And so we are going to do hybrid book clubs in that way, so that the people who have been so invested with us in these book clubs and do buy the books from us for the book clubs can still participate in that way. And that's sort of where we're leaning towards for events as well, because we do get people. We recently did an event with Mieko Kawakami. And so her being from Japan, we had some international participation as well. So as we move into events like that, we're looking at how to utilize like projector screens and things like that, and have people in the bookstore watching the Zoom on a projector while it's going on, so that other people from the Zoom can be participating virtually as well. So it's like a watch party, basically, is how we're framing it, I guess.
So the author would be able to be remote and coming in on the video, because I have to say, I'm probably not supposed to be here. I'm not at a bookstore. I work at a publishing house, but I was going to say, like, one of the things that we are very bummed out about with the pandemic ending is like these virtual book clubs have been so fantastic. They've been great for authors who can't travel. We have quite a few authors who just aren't very mobile, or, who have limited travel budget to be able to do many more stores. Mm-hmm. And the attendance has been awesome. Like, so much interaction, so much attendance. And these are people who are buying and reading the book. So the possibility of like keeping book clubs and having bookstores support like at least partially virtual book clubs is really, really exciting, especially having the author.
That was kind of our issue with it as well, because we wanted to still have communication, be able to offer events with authors either internationally or out of state who weren't necessarily able to travel. We wanted to bring these authors to our audiences, but people are kind of hungry for in-person events. So how do we make it an in-person event while also virtually hosting an author if they would like to be with us here at Tombolo? And so that was kind of our thought process for like this happy medium that we could find, where we could have folks in the bookstore and you still get people, in their store and shopping around, because that's one of the things that happens with events is like, you're not just getting folks buying the book that they came here for, you're getting folks shopping in your bookstore as well. Have folks in the bookstore be able to do this, and then also be able to bring them authors that they would not necessarily be able to interact with if it weren't for this like new virtual world that we're kind of living in, I guess.
That's cool. The watch party idea is really great. I mean, it would require that stores make that investment though on buying that projection and everything. Maybe there's like a scholarship fund we could put together for that or something.
And Kelly Justice from Fountain, you had something to add here?
Yeah, our book club, we have 6 book clubs, and a lot of the members have some crossover, and and I'm sorry about the laundry baskets in the back. I wasn't planning on being on camera, so whatever, it's a kind of day. so, you know, we polled them, we talked to them, and the people that have joined us virtually and had a lot of troubles making it to the book clubs prior to the converting to virtual. They really felt strongly about staying virtual, and then but others wanted to be in person. So we've come up with a solution where we do both. So we have a, you know, there's still, the actual book club itself is still meeting virtually, so we don't lose any of our international people. We don't lose any of our out-of-state people. We do require purchase of the book from us in some format for every single person that attends, and that's just, and that is, and they're very, very good about it. All the book clubs are, they just get it. And but for the ones that did want to be social, we're going to do private shopping like every other Sunday. We close at 4 on Sundays, and so from 4 to 6 we'll have like a light happy hour for all 6 book clubs, and they can come, whichever members want to come. It'll be their private time together to hang out, and that way we do get them in the store, so they do buy other stuff, and they get their social time together, but it's in a less they felt that if there were some people on screen, that eventually the people on screen would feel, and we haven't tried it, so I don't know that this would be the case, but they felt like the people on screen would feel like they weren't really included, or they would be talked over, or, you know, our thing was, you're going to set up a little laptop, and if you're that small and everybody else is around drinking wine together, then I think eventually it would be a real turnoff, you know, for the, unless you really, I mean, the big screen, and even that might work. I don't know, but that's what our book clubs felt like. So that's what we're going to go with for at least a while.
So it'll be 2 separate events. It'll be, when you do the in-person event with all the book clubs, is there going to be any author component to that, or will it be primarily a shopping party for the people living in?
Not necessarily. They are so happy to just talk to each other and recommend books to each other, you know, and they have really liked time. They really like time with the booksellers, to the one-on-one time with the booksellers. So we're going to start this with probably a kickoff with Bookstore Romance Day, which I know is not a Sunday, but we're going to do a Bookstore Romance Day with, and we're going to bring back the little photo booth, and, you know, so they can take pictures, and they print out little bookmarks. It's not inexpensive, but these people have been really faithful all year and been very supportive with their purchases. And I also realized I don't have my ring light on, so I look like crap. Okay. Oh God. Okay. I'm sorry. This is so, whatever this weird world has become. But so yeah, we're kind of starting, a lot of them read romance. So we're starting with Bookstore Romance Day with a special invitation to them saying, hey, remember 2 years ago when you all had your, you know, we'll show the pictures, and we'll show that, like, I have a big, and then we'll have a reunion type thing. And then we'll continue that back in maybe some Halloween thing in October. I don't know, you know, I just made that up. So that will probably happen now, I guess. But that's what we're doing. I don't know. I hope it works. I'll be happy to check back in.
We have a sort of a cautionary tale in the comments from Kat Leach. She posted here, we hosted Grady Hendrix Skyping in for an in-person book club meeting pre-pandemic. And while it was super cool and fun, it was just so awkward figuring out how to integrate audience interaction with Grady. Camera angles were a nightmare, and people had to stand up and move to camera to ask questions. And that was even with the projector screen. I continue to struggle with how to integrate interactive virtual and in-person audiences if they are meant to chat among themselves. Anyone, any insight in there as far as engagement strategies? Jamil?
Yeah, so I know that I talked about having a webcam where you can swivel, but if I had a situation like that, I would actually take this to what I do when I shoot commercials. And it's actually easier for booksellers because you would just be using your cell phone. My suggestion is to get a tripod that can that you can handheld. That's a handheld, and a bullet mic. Those are not expensive. You can get them relatively pretty cheap. And I would also make sure that you wear if you're going to be using other microphones, wear your headphones. But the good thing about having something like that is I would have a tall table to where you can just sit it down when you need to, and then grab it and make sure you got your anti-shake on. Get a phone that has anti-shake. Trust me, you'll definitely want that. And then you can walk around. Make sure when you walk around, as far as when you handle a camera, you need to make sure that you do it relatively quickly but smoothly. When you're moving, I would suggest also backing up while you're moving, so that way you can get an outer pan, and that way it will feel a little bit more like not so jerky, and it will give you more exposure to interaction. That's what I would do in a situation like that.
And Kat also posted in the chat a link if anybody wants to check it out, owllabs.com. And she asked if anyone had heard of it or ever used it, which I had never heard of it previous to seeing this link, but it looks, just from looking at the website, it looks ridiculously amazing. It also looks like it might have a price tag on it. But yeah, engagement is something that I kind of worry about with going back and forth, just because I personally kind of view that as more of like an MC issue, where like I'm more comfortable in a setting where it's something informal like this, where the directing is, you can see everyone, you can call on everyone, and I'm not sure that I'm that strong of a multitasker to lead events. So how's everybody kind of thinking about, is everybody kind of appointing a point person for this, or is everyone kind of thinking let the author do it, or are you guys opening it up more to like publisher collaboration with like, hey, let's try to experiment some more, and figure out what is going to work and not work? Any other collaborations or ideas on the horizon like that?
I wanted to just ask a question if I can, and I'm
Yeah,
sorry
definitely.
that I'm not in the store today. I'm the new events manager at Flyleaf Books in Chapel Hill. So we are kind of doing something that sounds a little bit different, just in that we're having kind of a capped small audience with the author in the store, and then we're just wanting to stream it for people that can't make the event or weren't able to get into our kind of more limited seating in our event space. So I'm just trying to figure out the kind of platform which might be best, and also the tech which would be good for as we're going forward with these events for our store, because I think we blew out our microphone system before COVID, and then it just didn't get replaced. And so now we're at a point where we're like, okay, what do we need tech-wise if we're going to do this successfully? We've had 2 events that we've streamed in the last 2 weeks on Facebook Live, and the sound was atrocious. So I'm trying to just figure out, we want to have our community be able to come to the store and have authors in the store, be able to have that component, but we also just want, like others have said, that group that we've harnessed, in the last year all over the country and elsewhere. We want to be able to have them still engage with our bookstore, but we just want to be able to do it with a quality product, without spending a lot of money. So I just wondered what people might think about just a simple platform. Is it, I don't know how, we've been using Crowdcast for our virtual events, which has been fine, but I just don't know what the answer is. If it's not Facebook, which I don't think it is it YouTube? Is it, what's another platform? If anyone has an idea about that. So I just wanted to ask that before we moved on from that kind of element.
Jamil, you have any technical advice for there, as far as like hardware and equipment that might be the best investment?
That seems like a very specific thing, and I'm absolutely willing to talk to you, Maggie, on a personal level as far as like what's going on with your microphones and stuff like that. But I know that you're using Crowdcast, but what about the webinar version of Zoom. Have you looked into that?
We have that and we use that all the time. I will tell you, it is very expensive. But as a public library system, we can afford it, but that does help you to achieve what you're talking about. So for a bookstore, that just might not be affordable. So maybe partner with your public library who does have that technology and you
That's
know,
what we
and train
do.
people. Yeah, that we love working with our bookstores, and we're happy to be able to provide that service for them. It means that the library does have to control the Zoom. And when I do them, you know, we have 4 or 5 authors each month now, and I have somebody running strictly back of house. It takes a couple of hands because you need to be careful, but not as careful with Zoom webinar. Obviously, the regular Zoom, it costs less, but you can't control it, and you know, you can get Zoom bombed. But the Zoom webinar requires, for us, we have 2 people running basically the back of the house function. So I'll introduce the author, then the author goes on, but Zoom webinar is wonderful. It's just awfully expensive. And now, in fact, they just increased our capacity for a Zoom webinar from 500 guests to 1,000. Not that we had any authors last year or this year that would have needed such an audience, but yeah, it is an option, but it's awfully pricey, I'm sorry to say. Hope that helps.
That's great. I'm just wondering about, you know, investing in soundboards and equipment, new equipment in the store so that we can use our event space, you know, in a new way as well. So it's just kind of, you know, listening to these ideas and these things that y'all are putting in the chat and everything is just great to hear. So I will research them as well, but thank you for that.
What was Rebecca said that you guys got like a projector so that the computer screen's in front of the author, but then like on a big screen behind the author so that people in the audience can see what's going on in virtual world. And maybe if you had another webcam on top of that big screen, vice versa, the virtual world could see the audience. Like it'd be like one of the members of it. What are you using for that? Yeah, like what projector did you get?
Oh gosh, it's a projector that has been at the store longer than I have, and it's like built in. No, it's not. The projector isn't built in, but the screen drops down. So I would have to look at what we've got in the store, and I'm not sure how we would probably just have to put like a webcam on a table facing back out at the audience if we wanted to show them.
Yeah, I'm with Vita as far as when you're doing, especially if you're going to do a webinar thing, like feel free to have a couple of different things that they can see in the store. Like you could make them all the panel.
Yeah,
I'm all about that. That makes it a lot more entertaining and people can see exactly what's going on in the whole store. That's my suggestion. I've done that before in Zoom events and it's ended up really well. I've had one up on the screen, and then I've had mine where I'm walking around, and then I've had a webcam, and that was just to showcase our cooking station, and it worked really well. People could see exactly everything that was going on with it.
And do you change what you spotlight, or do you just let it all kind of sit up there in a gallery view?
Yeah, it's a panel.
Okay.
Don't forget, you can use your laptops. We did my son's wedding with the library Zoom webinar with permission, and we had one laptop shooting the guests and the long shot of the bride and groom, and then we had one right up on where they were being married, and integrated. It made a fantastic, wonderful video. And we, can do the same thing here with author events, edit them, then put them on our YouTube channel after the fact. So you could just use your laptops. Works great.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to get like crazy equipment. It shouldn't be overly priced unless you have a huge, massive bookstore and you have like 300 people coming in all of the time for your events. You really shouldn't need like massive amounts of equipment.
Yeah, we primarily use StreamYard, which just, it's kind of a pass-through sort of thing that just goes to Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or wherever you want to broadcast to. And the thing that I really love about it is that it's just so simple to, use a cell phone, or, it's easy to get participants to come into it. Just send an email, they click on a link, and boom, you're working. And that's one of the things that I'm really intrigued about with doing our events, is that I could kind of use the cell phone and use the equipment like the microphone and stuff like that I have hooked up to it as, my technical stuff. But then I could kind of have a partner that's operating on another computer that can kind of fade in, fade out, or we could even kind of throw, if there's enough bandwidth as far as Wi-Fi, potentially even have a second one where you could have, multiple shots or something, if you want to get really, like, I don't know, Martin Scorsese about it or something.
Yeah, as a person who really likes to do production, and I do it all in post, and I like to fix things. So doing live things, I feel like I'm thrown into the fire each time, but it's definitely a learning experience.
Yeah, I always want to kind of test things out, but I also don't want to look like an idiot, just like streaming to YouTube live, being like test. So yeah, there's a lot that you could do beforehand, but yeah, once you click that live button, I don't know, once you click the live button, everything seems to get 10 times harder, I find. But anyway, well, we're actually coming up on an hour, so I want to thank everybody for coming out and give everybody an opportunity. Does anyone have any parting thoughts, any questions, last minute questions or anything? I know, Denise, my big takeaway from this is just partner with my local library on every single event and let them do it. So but any final thoughts, final questions from anybody?
Denise is the reason that I'm not good at Zoom, because she just handles it all.
Well, very cool. Well, very awesome. Thank you guys for coming out. Rebecca and Jamil, thanks for chatting with us and helping provide some direction and some counsel. And yeah, thanks everybody for attending. And if anyone needs anything, I know you're always welcome to email me with anything. I'm sure the same is for Rebecca and Jamil. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but you could also get in touch with SIBA and they can direct you towards us as well. And yeah, thanks everybody.
Thanks, everybody.